Welcome to the Journos on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Gordon Parks, Michael Grant and Alison McConnell here with me on the show today. I'm still wearing red. It's the aftermath of Aberdeen winning the Scottish Cup when I had to actually put the Aberdeen top on for opening my big fat mouth last week and saying there's no way the Dons are going to win it. And now, finally, since we've given you a breathalyzer test, you're back, you're sober, you're with us. What a celebration you must have had.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I thought you've never looked better, Peter, frankly, on Monday.
I was still drunk.
I rewatched it several times. Yeah, no, it was quite a weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, and no surprise that quite a few people in the Aberdeen community and the club sent me messages partially saying, we'll be watching. So it summed it up perfectly.
Listen, I thought, watching the footage, Union Street, the bus coming down, the absolute depth of emotion about it and genuine. But what struck me is it honestly 35 years ago?
I know.
The last time they had the opportunity to do that. So that struck me. But what also struck me was, I remember going through to Hearts on the Sunday, the day after they won the Scottish Cup, and it was similar. You only really see the magnitude of the achievement and the size of the fan base and what it means to them when you achieve something. But 35 years, brilliant to do it. But it can't be another 35 years to happen again.
Exactly.
At the other point, which I think you and I sitting next to each other in the press box would look and say to ourselves, the Aberdeen colour on the day was magnificent. I like that 50-50. You know, I'm one of these people who likes a kind of a meritocracy and a democracy as well, you know, where everybody gets a fair kick at it. So to see 20,000 Aberdeen fans was magnificent. But equally so, you know, there was... Is it too harsh on some Celtic fans to say there was a sense of entitlement, that they thought it was just going to be a stroll in the park? Because I certainly thought it was going to be based on the evidence.
I don't think it is too harsh to say. I thought Celtic felt flat on and off the park. I thought even the celebrations after the goal, and you know, it was like a scrappy goal, an own goal, but I thought everything felt fairly muted, quite flat. I absolutely thought there was an expectancy of, we're here, where's the cup, when do we have our treble parade? I just had that sense, and I think part of that comes from winning and being exposed to regular success and winning trebles so often. There was a point in Celtic's history when Martindale won that treble in 2001. That was the third treble in Celtic's history across the entirety of the club for more than 100 years. If you think how many then Celtic have been indulged by winning across recent seasons, I think the occasion does become diluted. I think there's no doubt about it.
The one that Saturday reminded me of was when Hibs won it.
Yeah.
When Hibs won it in 2016.
Yeah. I thought it was very reminiscent.
It was a more exciting final, admittedly, but they beat Rangers. Nobody in that Hibs support had seen them win the Scottish Cup before. It's been 114 years. And my God, you could tell it.
Yeah.
You know, in that minute or two between Gray's scoring and the final whistle, it was just euphoria.
Yeah.
It just built up ready to explode when the whistle went. And you can't fake that, Peter. You know, I mean, that's...
Yeah, you can't manufacture it.
And you can't get that if you're a support that's regularly winning. Yeah. It's just different.
Even if you go back to like Celtic winning the Scottish Cup in 1995 would have been similar, a dreadful game, but you know, just that they hadn't won a trophy for 6 years, and this pressure of not being able to deliver, and then you go and you get over the line and you get the first one. It's a different kind of celebration. Celtic maybe winning the league under Wim Jansen would be something different. You hadn't won a title for a decade, and you have all this release that comes with it. I think it's very different.
Let me name drop for a second, right? Last Friday I was out with John Hillcoat, Campbell Money, Brian Hamilton, and they were reminiscing about the Scottish Cup win. Again, it's decades ago. And I can still remember the open top parade. I remember the team that played, that landmark achievement. I remember the goal, the winning goal, Ian Ferguson scoring. That for a town, it's a defining year. I mean, it encapsulates everything about the town and you identify with it. But I think, back to the question, Celtics, they were prophets of their own doom. They sold their game changer in January. Jota got injured. Maeda went off the boil. The spark was no longer on the park because you've got Kuhn as well, who's dipped. And you've got all these ingredients coming together, and it's a perfect storm. And I think Aberdeen did what they need to do, stay in the game. and then grow in confidence, and then you get exactly what happened. It goes down to the penalty kicks and the lottery exists.
Well, the ultimate thing, I think, Michael, which is really good about it all, and especially so when you consider Hibs, when they won it, and especially Aberdeen, because they do it when they win it, is they have a parade. And the parade itself is, you know, you look and you see kids who are there, who can only listen to their grandpas. I mean, when people talk about, oh, Aberdeen are fixated by the ghost of Sir Alex Ferguson's teams, they're not. They're up in Aberdeen and they take each year as it comes, and new generations want new dreams with Aberdeen. They're not fixated by Fergie's team. They like to look back on, you know, some of the old footage, but they want to see new heroes, and to see kids on their fathers' and mothers' shoulders in Union Street, seeing the cup, seeing the players. That's what football's all about. That's why I thought it was there to be celebrated, because that's what we want to see.
Yeah, and you know, to the young generation, it's Mitov and it's Shinnie and, you know, Kevin Nisbet and these kind of guys. They're the ones that they're going to talk about from this year. I went up to the parade thing to write a piece for the paper, and my boys wanted to see it. And just the energy around Aberdeen on Sunday, despite the hangovers, the energy was, you could feel it, you know, and obviously if you go to, you know, I'm sure everybody here has been at one of these kind of parades at some sort of point.
No. What they like. No.
But you know what I mean, like, so basically you're in one position, so you don't get a sense really of, you don't always get a sense of the whole scale of the size of the thing, you know, and it's only the next day or when you go online and you start to see the pictures or maybe aerial shots and so on, you think, wow, you know, and the estimate was 100,000-ish, you know.
Yeah.
Does it not re-emphasise the social impact? I remember
huge.
Motherwell won the
Huge.
Scottish Cup, and you talk about legends, and again you can go through the players that did that. That galvanised a community that was on its knees at that time. And I think Aberdeen the same, economic problems around the town, the city. You've got a real togetherness there, and football stretches beyond the football pitch so many ways.
Can I leave myself wide open to ridicule here, which I have done by wearing the Aberdeen strip on the Monday, which got me absolute pelters.
Where did you get it from?
Well, listen, there's 2 points I want to highlight to you. The first one was, I'm thinking to myself, the first Aberdeen penalty goes right into the corner. I thought, oh, good penalty. McGregor's missed. And as everybody, Ali's doing her usual journal, working away, you know, doing this, and she doesn't even have a typewriter, right? So she's working away furiously. And the only thing that's going through my head is, where the fuck am I going to get a Aberdeen top in the central belt? You know, I do have Aberdeen tops from some players that I've known down through the years, but I'm not getting into them. So I'm thinking to myself, where am I going to get a top? And one of our journalists says, listen, there's a guy who's opened a shop in Hamilton. And, you know, I thought to myself, oh, this has got to be the last saving grace. So my daughter and I said, come on, we'll go to this retro shop. So we went to this retro shop, and the big guy in there was a big, great lad, loves his football shirts. And he said, I knew somebody was going to come in and buy an Aberdeen shirt today. And by the way, retro shirt, 65 quid. 65 quid for an Aberdeen top. But that's the nature of that game now. But I got the top, which was magic.
Saw you coming. Watch the show.
Absolutely.
You said magic there, I was waiting for the size.
You know, so I got the top, and that was me. And then I thought, right, job done. And then that point you just made there, during the last parade I was at was 2005, I think 2005, 2006. One of my friends who indirectly still works in the industry, but we used to work together at STV. The two of us turned around and said to each other, Mum, we'll go to the Barcelona parade and see Henrik in Barcelona when Barcelona won the league. And then they subsequently went on to win the Champions League. Oh. And we went to Barcelona for the parade in the bus where they were all going down. There was, hundreds of thousands there. All joy. That's the only parade I think I've ever been at, other than one other, which I might as well tell you, since we're all going, I've taken that much pelters. I think my mother took me in 1967 to the parade when I was 2 to see Celtic with the European Cup, Michael. So there you are.
You remember
it? At 2? You kidding me?
Well, no, I think you surprised me in so many ways.
Yeah, I think the family were, you know, we're all going to see Celtic with a European Cup. I've never been to a parade. So that's why I looked at the Aberdeen thing and I thought to myself, that is bloody magnificent.
That's
It's great, you know. And by the way, can I just, on that point, say to you, he's a game away from being a hero or a villain, Jimmy Thelin. I mean, some of the Aberdeen fans were giving me pelters on social media saying, "Oh, wait a minute, you were suggesting Malky Mackay and Neil Lennon. Jimmy's the man. Jimmy's
Jimmy
not.
is the man.
Jimmy's the man now. But by the way, fine lines and sliding doors."
You're right, and I mean there are echoes of Postecoglou and Spurs, aren't there, in terms of where was it heading, and listen, Aberdeen's. I think the board's faith in Jimmy was absolute, but some supporters were beginning to worry. They were beginning to worry about the football being kind of very one-dimensional in terms of one's way of playing, and that was it. And that way of playing wasn't going to work against Celtic because it hasn't been working against Celtic. But none of us knew whether he would change it. He might think, I'm a man of principle, this is the way I play, it's got us this far. And then when we saw the team coming out about an hour or so before the game, we thought, okay, he has changed it.
Yeah. So
let's see if that does give them a chance to get foothold in the game, as Gordon says. Keep it going into the second half. Even a goal down, you're still in the match. Mm-hmm. So I think he had a really good day, and I don't obviously he had a good day, but in terms of his reputation, and in terms of everybody just buying in again, okay, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
See, for Aberdeen fans, Michael, what should be the expectation now? Because if I'm going to be mightily critical of teams out with Celtic and Rangers, the one thing that I wanted it for Hearts last season, I want it for Aberdeen next season is, come on, get players in. Don't buy, and I'm not being xenophobic here, don't buy foreign players that are cheap or cheaper than the Scottish players, and you end up with this substandard side. Get players, there's I can think of 3 or 4 players in Scotland that are easily going to be great to be cherry picking for an Aberdeen side, but get players that can get you into a group stage, because that's the thing. In the last 20 years, every club out with Celtic and Rangers has been woeful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're in the group stage. The challenge actually next season will be to hold up a domestic league campaign.
Yes.
And again be third, and also be respectable in Europe. And
Kelly being the example.
Well, I mean, Aberdeen have tried it.
Yeah.
Hearts have tried it, and they've not been able to marry a group campaign in Europe with a good league campaign. They've actually.
It's very difficult. I think when you're playing a Thursday night and you're coming back, you're travelling, and then you're coming back, you've got a Sunday game.
It puts demands on a squad, and you've got to. There's no question Aberdeen will have to use the money they're getting to beef up the squad. That was a question I put to him after the game. I said, how do you think you're going to be able, or do you think you'll be able to kind of juggle that thing between domestic football and European challenges? And he made the point, well, we have to try, and we have to try every year. That's how you build a club. It's by doing this every year and getting the income up every year.
But that psychological barrier that got broken on Saturday, it galvanises catalyst for something better, and it has to be for Aberdeen peers, right? European records across the board outside Celtic and Rangers is in a total embarrassment.
Yep.
And as we head again quickly towards another one, it can't continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just looking here, and the reason why I was quickly trying to get to this page is because there's a couple of names that I was thinking, and please forgive me, Ross County fans, for this, but if I was Aberdeen, I'm saying to myself, right, you've lost Jamie McGrath, go and get Ronan Hale. Go and buy Keelan Adams from Falkirk. Go and buy Calvin Miller from Falkirk. I don't want to, I know John McGlennon and the Falkirk fans go, take a run and jump to yourself. But that's the nature of what Scottish football's all about, Gordon. It's quite simply, the money goes round in our game. There are some really talented, good Scottish players there, that certainly would offer more than, the big guy you had at the back at Aberdeen, who 1 minute looked like a world beater and then next minute was a bomb scare.
Rubizic.
Yes, you got to say to yourself, there's talented players going about Scottish football. You can cherry pick.
Hale, he's Irish, right? But absolute carried the club on his shoulders, and he's technically, and he's a thinker, and he's somebody that needs a platform now in Aberdeen.
Yep.
Perfect signing. Ethan Ross at Falkirk. You want width, you want somebody that will go and deliver crosses.
Yeah.
He's there ready to be picked.
Yep.
And I have to say, the economics of football and the realities are Falkirk, if Aberdeen come, have to look at that. There are players. They're few and far between, but you're right, they have to be Scottish, they have to be localised to a degree.
One of the things that will put that'll make that difficult for Aberdeen or a Hearts or a Hibs is I think Rangers and maybe Celtic, but certainly Rangers are looking more at Scottish players. They've signed Lyle Cameron. They were linked with the boy Mulligan as well at Dundee. You know, Aberdeen wanted Cameron, but as Gordon says, you know, in any kind of power struggle, the old firm is always going to be really powerful. McCowan, you know, Aberdeen or Hearts or Hibs can say, well, we'll play you. You'll start every week, but it's okay saying that. But when the wage offers are 3, 4, 5 times bigger, it's difficult.
If you're
for
being
a boy to say no.
nostalgic, Michael, and you're looking back to Aberdeen's golden days, look how many homegrown.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can't. I mean, academy now, right? But what's going on with that? I keep asking the question. That's just not Aberdeen's failing. It's across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. But they need to get 50 and 100 games, as I always say. You know, with the demise of the reserve league, if you can get a Scottish player who suddenly gets 50 or 100 games playing alongside men, Michael, they've got a chance to become better players. And that's the key issue to it. If you play alongside really good players and they talk you through games and they show you how to play a position and they talk you through that, it's invaluable.
This quickly. Andy Gould was on BBC, all the different channels, talking last summer about the white paper that they presented. It's all going, and again, nothing. Quiet. Implement a Scottish Premier League, Reserve League, which worked. Do something, because here we go into another European campaign, same old navel-gazing analysis of failure.
Yes.
Do something. Andy, don't just talk it. Don't just spend money and going and investigating the reasons why. Implement something to change it.
I have to say, and you did touch on it, Michael, just before we leave this topic, that Aberdeen were resolute in backing him, whether it went pear-shaped or not. Unless it was a 5-0 spanking, I think, having
Even
spoken
then,
to people...
I think he still had the complete faith of the board
Oh, they're
going
going
into
to
next
stick by
season
him.
regardless.
Yeah.
But he has credit in the bank now. Now you can point to say, here is a tangible return from a first season, that this changes so much about how this team sees itself. It gives a belief. It gives a belief not just in the team and success, but it gives a belief in the manager, that the manager's system can work, that he can now go on and improve on this term next season again and cope with the dual challenges of playing on 2 fronts, a domestic and a European front. And I think that's not to be taken lightly. I think that when you look back at clubs, they toil to cope with it. So I think this season the recruitment will be key to how it phases out across the opening few months of the season.
He has to learn his lesson of Scandinavian and going to players that he knows hasn't worked, because he's dodged a bullet here. That result on Saturday preserves him. It preserves him. It gives him an opportunity and a platform to take the club forward. Probably, I mean, he would have got that anyway.
Yes.
But as Alison says, there's credit in the bank and it has to be used wisely.
Yeah. Who was your star man, incidentally, on Saturday for you?
A few of them I thought stepped up. I mean, it's hard to see beyond the goalkeeper, but you know, I thought Devlin was good. I thought Shinnie was good.
Yeah, I thought
Jensen was good.
Can you put your finger on why he emptied Devlin for a long period? I couldn't quite work it out.
No, but I think Nicky would probably say his form at the start of the season was so strong, and then it kind of dipped a little bit. And actually, both of the fullbacks who started the season and who were both in the Scotland squad, McKenzie got in the squad as well, and Devlin, they were both out of the side within a few months. But I thought Devlin showed the best of him.
Yes.
That's himself. In a difficult role as well, because he was playing not on his normal side back in the side. I just thought his attitude and his fight was brilliant. And also at the Aberdeen goal, you saw what he was showing at the start of the season when he's up. He was there ready to tap that in if Schmeichel hadn't.
He's coming in behind
squirted it in himself, and then he was at the back post. Now, we were seeing that from Nicky Devlin at the start of the season. It was so exciting. This overlapping fullback who's right at the back post.
Yeah.
But listen, you don't beat Celtic unless 8, 9, 10 guys are delivering on the day, you know.
Michael, your sliding door moment is effectively, and the truth is, if it hadn't been for Schmeichel, they'll lose the game.
Or Maeda. I think he's a Maeda.
But I mean, both goals were lucky.
You take everything that comes your way.
You know, Celtic's goal was an own goal. For all their pressure, Celtic didn't have a shot on target in the first half.
No, exactly. Two shots on target in total.
I actually thought that was
today, right? You brought in the guy with specialised subject. How can you compete with that?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to compete with it now, because if I have to wear an Aberdeen shirt, which is a long time before I'll open my gob again, can I just say to you, you've got to be honest about this, Michael. You took your boys up, yeah? What age are they?
Well, they went themselves. They're 22 and 17.
Oh, fantastic. Did you meet them up there?
I saw them after the game in the city centre.
And did you have any kind of Aberdeen regalia on? Did you? No, you're not that type of person.
Listen, over the years I've tried every bit of superstition on Aberdeen Cup final days, and it tends not to work. So I just left them to it.
No, but I mean for the parade, did you?
Oh no.
No, none of that. Okay, I just wanted to see if you were as reserved as I thought you were, and you are. Simple as that. Just on that point, and it's a real switch, and I apologise for this dramatic switch from the euphoria and, of course, the joy surrounding an Aberdeen win, because you get such a beautiful day and you get Aberdeen fans all celebrating in the bus, and it's something to be remembered. And then I looked at it and I thought, Crystal Palace, South London, fantastic, the first major trophy. And then you see Spurs and they've got the bus and everybody's celebrating. And then what unfolds in Liverpool is, for me, just the most tragic of circumstances. And I love parades. You can't legislate for someone just inexplicably driving a car into people. And, you know, when somebody sent me a bit of footage on WhatsApp, I thought to myself, you know, this can't be in our country again. You know, this can't be something like that. And I just wonder what comes out of it apart from anything else. There was an immediate reaction from the police, a quick one, to say, you know, this is a white male, 53 years of age, which tells you about our society and why they had to quickly announce that in case there would have been further riots. But it's a sad state of affairs. You love parades. What can we do? Should there have been tighter security? Do we have to limit the size of a parade, where a parade goes, and of course make it so that the security is so tight? And we've also witnessed a situation here in Glasgow where people are saying, listen, don't come to the Tron. Celtic fans are there in thousands if they win the league.
I think it's very difficult. I think parades obviously are slightly different, but I think there's always an organic element to some of that. Like when there's a trophy won, particularly for the likes of Aberdeen or Spurs, when it's been such a new experience, when it galvanises an entire community. I think you want to give them their place. You want to afford people that moment. It's a very special moment. I don't think you can allow isolated incidents to spoil it for everyone else. But I do think, obviously, in the current climate where we live, and you see it at Christmas markets in Europe sometimes too, you have various instances. I think you obviously need to look at security concerns around it. But ultimately, I think it would be really unfair to deny people that moment for the behaviour of isolated idiots.
Yeah,
I've got a nephew that lives in France, lives in Paris, looking forward to the PSG game on Saturday. PSG winning that, the Champs-Élysées is absolutely packed. When France won the World Cup, it was 1 million people on the Champs-Élysées. Is it a cultural thing? It's not. It's an isolated incident of somebody who you inexplicably can't anticipate that kind of behaviour.
Yeah.
I think you can't deprive that natural, organic, exuberant reaction and an opportunity. Very seldom you get it to celebrate. Your question is relevant, but there's no answer to it really, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, that's the point, because if ever a community and if ever a group of people deserved a parade, when you consider the last time they won the league title, it was in the COVID year. And, you know, they latterly got the chance to come out onto the streets as everybody in the country opened up again. But it wasn't the same as winning it that day. And this time around, you know, all the people are just going there to revel in the red and see their heroes on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, Alison makes a good point that these things can sometimes be organic because people want to do them whether they're organised or not. I mean, how many times have we seen Celtic fans gathering back at Parkhead? It's just that instinct. Rangers fans did it when they won the title. There is that instinct to kind of be together, and to it's almost like a magnet. It draws you to where the trophy is or where the captain will be or the players will be. In terms of the broader point about the kind of security risk, I think it's almost impossible to protect a crowd against a car. You know, I mean, a car it's such a universal thing, but it's also a lethal weapon if in the wrong hands or in the hands of somebody who's not in control of himself when he's doing, let alone if he has an agenda. I mean, when we went through that initial spate of terrorist attacks in other countries with cars, you thought, how is this going to end? Because you're so vulnerable to that. If that is to be the modus operandi for killing people in the name of terrorism and generating global headlines, I don't see how you stop that. Now, thankfully, it does seem to have, touch wood, that seems to be
and a lot of good,
not as prevalent as it was.
A lot of good work in the background, which a lot of people don't realise. A lot of good work by the secret services and MI5.
So that's a good point.
You name any organisation, anti-terrorism squads who work in the background to try and minimise any kind of threat.
Peter, your biggest nightmare is somebody that is doing it on his own. So there's no strands to it. Without knowing the specifics of this incident, right, it's the biggest nightmare is, you're right, jumping in a lethal weapon, which a car can be, no rhyme or reason to it, no ideology behind it, so there's no trace of it. It's just something that occurs at that moment.
Yes.
How would you protect people against that?
Absolutely. It's very, very difficult. And again, I think our thoughts go out to all the people in Liverpool, especially the 11 who were seriously injured. Although I did actually see an interview with one Liverpool person who was an older man who was there at the parade, who was also at the Ariana Grande concert. And again, you can't legislate for these things when you have a large gathering. But sad as it is, we have to wait and see what were the circumstances, what are the details of it, what the punishment is, and then what the outcome is, to try and learn some sort of lessons that minimise the chances of it happening again. So, cup final, parades as ever. We will talk about Ange. I know you mentioned him there. We'll talk about the future of managers as well. Just one couple of things that I forgot to touch on the flip side of that. I know it's a bit scattergun approach on it, but with the impending takeover at Rangers, Celtic themselves will look back at that cup final. I wonder what they'll be thinking from the aftermath of it. I think the overriding aspect should be put in perspective that Brendan Rodgers won a double, regardless of the people who have got that entitled, we should be winning a treble attitude. He's won a double. They've played some really good football, and they're into the chance of one qualifying playoff game, seeded for the Champions League again, and the riches that it delivers.
I think if you to reflect on the campaign as a whole, you would have to see it as a success. There's 2 trophies. I think you saw the progress made in the Champions League. I think arguably Celtic's best European campaign for some time. But I think you would have to also say that from that Bayern Munich game to the end of the season, it dipped. It just, any kind of spark around the season just seemed to dissipate. I think there'll be a frustration that it really didn't. It wasn't sustained from start to finish, which has really been the hallmark of Brendan Rodgers' teams at his time at Celtic, has been a relentlessness and energy to carry them until the final whistle. You felt as though he was almost having to G them up to get them towards the finish line. I think there was certainly a flatness. I think that maybe points to a squad that needs greater depth going into next season too. I think when you saw some of the players maybe introduced in the final and going across the extra time at Hampden, I think it felt as though there was a few players there that just maybe aren't quite ready for stepping up and playing a sustained role between them, across the course of a campaign. I think there are areas in the team that need to be strengthened between now and the start of the next campaign. But ultimately, you would have to frame it as a success. You can't win every game, every season. You're not going to win a treble every season, and it's not a failure if you don't win a treble. However, I think quite clearly there is surgery needed on that team.
If you were being brutal, and I pick up on your point, Gordon, which is something that we talked about earlier in the week, your point is very valid, which is quite simply that for all the good football they played, for the ultimate football that I thought was the highlight of it was in that stadium in Munich, where they were within a whisker of taking it to extra time. My brutal assessment of it is the manager did really well, fulfilled his remit, but was let down in effect by the board, who sold their best player and never replaced him at a time financially when they could easily have replaced him without any pain whatsoever.
And they paid the price. Listen, devil's advocate, Celtic win the league. Celtic should, and they win it by a distance, and they should. So they got the job done. Cups are different. Scottish Cups are different. It can happen. It can turn on a mischance, a goalkeeper throwing the ball in the net. But Celtic win the league. That's their bare minimum with the financial strength that they have across the board. I think, inexplicably, they never... I mean, difference makers are what Celtic need.
Yeah.
They've got a quality and a strength and depth, I think, also. But they miss that bit of magic. And they get found out on Saturday. And again...
I thought they get found out in Munich without
they did,
Diogo.
and I think Alison's right. You've got a couple of months now of flat, uninspired, lack of inspiration and flair. James Forrest actually came in and provided something different.
As he did to the latter end of
Yeah,
last
so
season.
with the exception of a guy that's been there for 16 years,
Yeah.
Celtic should and are obliged to have difference-making players that play on a different level.
And on the Journos programme and on any programme that we do on there, and I think, newspapers, whatever profession you're working in broadcast as well, the necessity is to try and be fair and offer balance on this. And the board itself, if they're taking the hit for Kyogo, will look at it and say, well, wait a minute, spent a fair whack of money giving him what he was looking for. But on the flip side of that, Michael, whoever's buying the players, he substituted them. He wasn't having Engels after 65 minutes. He wasn't having Ida after 65 minutes. He looked, and of the players that have been given to him, they weren't on the park.
No, they weren't. I mean, those two that you mentioned, that's £20 million of talent. And in Scotland, that's an enormous investment in players, And, okay, you can say Aberdeen are playing a low block, but you're buying players really to be able to deal with a low block if you're at Celtic. Austin Trusty isn't even starting. And
He's £6 million.
£6 million. I mean, again, an enormous fee. I think Ali made a good point about the season tailing off. The Old Firm results weren't good for Celtic certainly in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And Brendan Rodgers made the point that after them, he said, we're so far ahead in the table that maybe the players, are just... You can't get up for it, right? And I think, I think the same principle applied in the final. For all that they talked that we're not complacent and we go every week and all this, I think they probably thought, listen, we've ragdolled this Aberdeen team so many times that, and I'm not even, I don't regard this as a criticism. I think it's subconsciously.
I was going to say, I think it's a subconscious.
I think it's a subconscious thing. You think the jeopardy isn't there, and I think that's what's cost them against the Rangers in the last 2-3 games. And I think probably it's contributed to a flat.
He's like the Churchill dog there. He's shaking his head while you're on.
I agree with that because there's a mindset element that you're correct with, right? But there's also I remember Tom Rodgers was a magic man at a cup final. League campaigns are won by better, more investment in better players, right? And Celtic have got the better players, so they win league. Cup finals are won by moments, individuals. O'Reilly got sold. He changed games. He was. I just think if you look at the personnel within it, the inspiration and the flair has been diluted, and it's been boardroom decisions that's done that. And I think it comes home to roost. And I think when I look at that Celtic team, you play Maeda as a one-dimensional centre forward. Maeda is a workaholic, but he's one-dimensional to a degree. Who's opening the game up for you, and who's making
I just thought it was like a game too many for Maeda. Maeda's looked exhausted. Just the last couple of weeks.
Where's the brain in that lineup that started? Where is the invention? Where's the real creative spark that goes and changes?
Yeah, and when you had Hatate out too, like Hatate's someone that would maybe give you that middle of the...
Celtic with that money available needed to bring in that individual that could do something.
But even there was something that if you go back to January and the final weekend of the transfer window, when it was clear Kyogo was going to then, Brendan Rodgers sat after a game against Motherwell at Fir Park and seemed very, very confident that there was a signing coming in to replace him. He said, it's more or less, almost assured that there is a replacement comes in if he goes out. Not quite in those words.
I think he thought it was discarded.
The inference given was that there was a replacement coming in, and then when it didn't happen, you go back to that interview and you think, in the 48 hours that took place between that conversation and the window closing, there was a shift somewhere.
If you don't have players in your team that are going to hurt you with pure quality, then you leave your door open for a problem that Aberdeen created.
I also
for
felt
themselves.
as though after Celtic scored the first goal, there was almost an element of, well, if there was ever going to be an issue in this game, Aberdeen had to ask the first question. The fact we've got the first goal, I think there was an expectancy then of it's fairly straightforward. And here you're on the final straight, it's just a run in. And I thought that was reflected even in the substitutes within the game and the timing of the substitutes.
I'm going to talk about Rangers, Hearts and Hibs as well, because we want to see a stronger league. We want to see more competitive league as well. We're going to talk about Livingston too before this Journos is over. But I just wonder on that point, Rangers suddenly, everybody's waiting on Mr. Kavanagh to come in and then eventually the game plan and the blueprint to be rolled out to everybody. 1 minute it's not Ancelotti, then it's the next it is Ancelotti, then it's the next minute it's Russell Martin. Oh no, he's taking a job at Leicester. The great thing about it is even the great Alec Cameron, in his envelope, in his drawer, that he used to say were the answers to all these problems, there's nothing in anybody's envelope right now. Nobody knows, Michael.
No, they don't. No, I'm not sure they do. No. It's been a bit of a merry-go-round, and I mean, time matches on. Time matches on. I think I know because I looked up this morning, day 92, I think, from Philip Clement's sacking to now, and it's not okay. Barry Ferguson was there, but it doesn't stop you doing the groundwork for your next manager while he was there. You would imagine that the Niels Coppin and the recruitment element of the club and Thelwell that's coming in from Everton are putting transfer activity together.
Yeah.
Because the opening qualifier of the Champions League is late July. We're now almost at the beginning of June. Listen, maybe from a PR point of view, they're wanting to present the whole thing as a package. Here's the takeover, here's the new manager, so that looks like a bond, and you can't say, oh well, do these owners like this new manager? That takes away all that if they're able to synchronise it. But at the moment, there's it's a bit of guesswork, isn't it, for us in our business?
The problem is, whoever gets it, it's not going to be seamless. It's not that kind of operation because it's a major surgery job. There needs to be an absolute blunt address of the players that failed spectacularly time after time. They need to be publicly emptied, and that needs to happen. Somebody has to decide to do that. The recruitment has to be done now in a matter of you're counting days, but we are days now, counting away towards the games that matter. So it's going to have to be an appointment who comes in and radically shakes things quickly, empties quickly and recruits quickly. Rangers are already working against the clock, which was a position they really didn't need to be in. So the problems are already starting to mount. But I just think in the back of the season that they've had, you see clubs at the moment releasing players left, right and centre. I saw a lot today, a batch of players. That is the cull that occurs at football clubs that fail. I haven't seen it at Rangers yet. It needs to happen.
Well, there's been five gone. There's five gone.
They were going to go. They were going to go.
Yeah.
That was the expected
If
players
Leon
have gone.
Balogun thought he was going to go.
Well, Leon, again, it has to go because you need
New
a
blood.
competitive Rangers team that make a fist of it next season.
But you're right. I mean, they've got a turnover, a mini revolution that they're going to require in the squad, and Celtic are stable, right? I mean, in this conversation today, and probably in general, there's a bit of negativity about Celtic. It's just a bit downbeat because they've lost the cup final. Overall, it's been an excellent season. They're a very stable club. The squad is very stable. The manager's stable. We know there's uncertainty about whether he'll stay beyond next summer, but he's going to be here for this season. So, we pretty much know Celtic are going to start well and start winning again as soon as the league campaign goes. Rangers, we don't know. You've got all that turnover, and then they have to get it right, and they have to get it right immediately in terms of being able to win league games.
Yeah, the other thing I think is a huge risk, and I might as well just say it now, because I've said it about previous managers and ended up getting egg in my face with it. But
An offer to wear a shirt with something like that.
no, calm your jets.
Rangers,
He can do the show in his pants next time.
Is that on the record?
There's more chance of me doing my show in my pants. Although I have to say, I have actually put on a Rangers strip before for my good fam. I feel as if I'm the only one revealing secrets on this show today. But
I'm the only one that has
the day's young.
Yeah, well, to be fair, and I make no bones about it, I did wear a Rangers strip once for the late, great Sandy Jardine, because Sandy Jardine and I were pals, and he was my co-commentator when I was at Radio 4th, and he was a brilliant man. And they had a sponsors' day, and he said, look, you come and play in this game at Ibrox, and the both of us laughed, and I thought, oh, to hell with it, I love a game of, I'm like, I go out the front door to play football. So I said yes. Well, little did I know, Michael, that Walter Smith and Ali McCoist had a hand in the whole thing. So when I walked into the Rangers dressing room, Ali McCoist and Walter Smith had just posted a little message with my strip underneath the frame of the Queen. This one's for you, Peter. to which, I laughed heartily and then sobbed uncontrollably as I walked towards the strip, put it on, played in the match, had a great day. One of my mates who was a diehard Rangers fan, I got him the chance to play there, and it's been the best day of his life. So you get these little quirks. But
did you kiss the badge when you scored? Steady
now. None of that Barry Ferguson stuff. Remember when he kissed the PLZ badge? But it's one of those things where I think Rangers have got a huge dilemma in the fact that getting people out is one thing. Some of them are on wages and they say, I'm not moving. And then there's the other thing, which is the transformation of the squad. And then there's also the fact now you've got season ticket holders who have to dispatch the money in out of their accounts towards them. The stadium needs upgraded. We've got a financial fair play set of circumstances in there. And some people might say to themselves, and this is where I'm going to get egg in my face or not, if I was looking at it and suddenly they appoint David Ancelotti, if I'm wide of the mark on that, if they appoint him, I think, what a risk that is. In a country like this, with a guy who is just, it's not Carlo Ancelotti, it's son of Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah, I think the same. I think though that Rangers will go into the season on a real wave of kind of confidence and morale. Now, how long that survives will be dictated by results. But the takeover, when it's finally confirmed and here's the detail, here's our ambition and all that stuff, that is going to really galvanise the Rangers support, because they've been crying out for something.
Yeah.
Now, and I think privately, Peter, that most of the fans would share that concern about Ancelotti. And I think if any of them come out and say, "Oh well, listen, we're delighted. He's the guy I was hoping we were going to get."
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you're kidding us on.
Yeah.
Do you remember David Holmes unveiled Souness in the Blue Room? And that was the start of something magnificent for Rangers that sustained itself. You talk about stability. They can't go begging managers to appoint them. They need to make sure that appointment is managed properly. This is a blue chip job, a brilliant job. Somebody like Sean Dyche, who brings a stability to the club, because the demands he puts on players. He's got the contacts to go and recruit better than what's there. Somebody, I'm not saying him, but that's the identikit kind of guy. Don't go shooting for the stars because his name's he's got an Italian name and his dad's a football legend. You need stability. The building block has to be maybe not so spectacular and glamorous. It needs to be definite.
Yeah.
And you need somebody that's going to bring a degree of definite to it.
I did wonder about going for a tried and tested. I just wonder though about
Sean
the
Dyche
fight. I'd wonder about the fight. I don't know if it would excite you, but I think he would definitely bring. You know what he would bring. It's predictable what would come. I don't know if Rangers. You're still talking top drawer in terms of finances.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I would say is, listen, we tend to get really wrapped up in everything that's the end of the world if you get a manager wrong. If this American consortium is in for the long haul at Rangers, if David Ancelotti comes in and is a disaster and he's gone in 6 months, you know what? It's not the end of the world in the grand scheme of things.
It's like you're just removing a brick and putting another one in.
Yeah.
It's not the culture of the whole.
Maybe then you go to the Sean Dyche where you go, okay, we got that wrong. We'll try this way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, that might cost you another league title. It might do, which will take it to what, 5 in a 5 in a row for Celtic.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is, if they get this manager wrong, people like us and you will all say, oh, and they can't get this one wrong. Well, they can.
Yeah.
And they can recover from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the biggest problems Rangers have had is recruitment.
Absolutely.
Totally.
You're bringing in somebody that knows the market, knows the demands of that marketplace. It's, going to places like Motherwell, Dens Park require a specific kind of player. The recruitment at Rangers hasn't identified the players that are able to do that, clearly. So you need somebody who knows the landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that point, and before we talk about David Martindale and Livingston, a man who does know the landscape that he's about to embark on in the new season in the top division, Hearts and Hibs, Ali, I genuinely want to see the Edinburgh clubs make a real fist of it. I think Hibs have to be celebrated. David Gray applauded, the players lauded for what they achieved when you consider they were bottom of the table in November. I think they'll look back in this season and then maybe look and see what kind of player they're going to get, because I don't know if you noticed, Michael, on the board, the Black Knights were suddenly more prominent in the new boardroom shuffle, so they're there. So there's an excitement around Hibs and what they're doing, and maybe getting more cash to spend in players. And then of course you've got the Jamestown analytics that Derek McInnes says he's going to embrace at Hearts.
Yeah, interesting seasons for both. I think Hibs would have been as gutted as Celtic at the result at the weekend, given the European access in places. But certainly I think they both go into the season on contrasting fortunes. Hibs go in the crest of a wave on the back of a fantastic finale to the campaign. Hearts go in, new manager, disappointment, underachieving this season. So it'll be interesting to see what both do in the window, what kind of player Derek McInnes takes in at Hearts, whether or not he uses the Jamestown analytics that we've heard about. I think we spoke about it last week, about whether or not McInnes himself was a Jamestown analytics programme. It certainly doesn't seem to be that way when you look at it superficially. But it'll be pretty fascinating to see how that plays out, whether or not Hibs can go and sustain what they've done across the latter half of the season, getting into a new campaign. And again, they could find it difficult when you're starting off the campaign, having to manage qualifiers, European games, and then still try and get off to a good start. And I think sometimes the opening months of a campaign can be fundamental to just setting a tone for the season, just setting out how it's going to go. Hearts, I felt as though never recovered from an adverse start last season. Gilmour never recovered from a tough start. So I think these opening months can be utterly imperative to just how what the mood is around the campaign.
I've got a couple of Hearts pals, right?
Yeah.
One who's at the club, and another
Just two?
Another one. You've got to put a quote on it, you know. And I take great delight in saying this is a big day in your calendars, League Cup group stage draw day. But I do caveat by saying, listen, you'll get it back at us in a year's time. You know? I think one of the things, and I'll put it in an Aberdeen context, but the fact that this UEFA money will come into Aberdeen because of being in the group stage, I think that's really important, because Hearts and Hibs are both growing commercially, and they both have more serious money behind them. You know, the Black Knights, that's a big investment from the Bournemouth chairman, and you know, we maybe haven't seen the last of that. Clearly, Hearts are trying to tool up with Tony Bloom's money and the Jamestown analytics thing, and Derek McInnes is an accomplished manager who knows this scene inside out. So I think Aberdeen were in danger, and they're all in danger of falling behind the other two, you know. But I think the two Edinburgh clubs are growing commercially and growing financially, and that tends to show on the pitch. You know, whether it shows next season or not, we don't know. But so I think there is a kind of battle below the Glasgow clubs, which is really interesting.
Yeah, welcome back to David Martindale. Now, I'm a huge fan, as you know, Gordon. We've had him on the show. He's one of those people that I think deserves great credit. Not for the fact that some people were very, very lazy in assessing his team and his squad. You know, at times we're saying, they're all launch ball and they're playing on that artificial surface. They've got all the benefits at home games and everything. But I've watched them in more than a few occasions this season, and they played some really good football with some talented footballers on that park.
He phoned me about 8 weeks ago, and his expectation, he had written off the fact that they would go up as champions.
Because we're 11 points behind it.
Right, so he'd written that off. He didn't think his strikers had clicked into gear in time. Guys like Stevie May getting off the boil, they weren't scoring enough goals. He was quite defeated, and he said he was going to walk, regardless of how the season panned out. And I'm not betraying a confidence here, because he'll tell you himself now. He was in his head already gone. He's knocked back a couple of jobs. One was from a different continent, so he had options, and he was looking to take another step. And then in the weeks following, you could sense, he phoned me and said, ditch everything that I've just told you, park it.
Yeah.
We're getting money coming in here. the boardroom problems, the court cases have all alleviated. The clouds have gone.
This is Calvin Ford.
Calvin Ford's come in and he's now put money on the table, and he's a pedigree, proper guy to sit down and take the club forward. So Davy's flipped completely with his mindset, and I think that has been the driving force behind not just what happened on Monday, but behind the resurgence to take the league title race to the last day. David Martindale deserves all the credit in the world. Livingston are a good addition going back. A, you don't have to go to Dingwall, right?
Yeah.
And B, he deserves more credit for the tactical acumen and the recruitment, which has been super, I mean, time after time.
Yeah.
And if you knew the budget that he's operating under, it would shock you. Talk about Hearts and Hibs. Livingston punch well above their weight time after time, and it's time that Hearts and Hibs did the same.
It's really, sorry, Peter, it's really interesting. I mean, Paxy's his pal, you know, but David, a few years, it's not that long ago since David Martindale wasn't really a known figure. And I'm talking about before he came out and spoke brilliant kind of candour.
Gary Holt was the manager at the time.
Yeah, but you know, there was all these kind of rumours of, oh, you know, this coach who doesn't give his managers authority, he's the guy, he meddles and all that. And now he's seen us, he's such a respected coach in the Scottish game that, you know, long before the playoff actually came together, it was like Ross County might be in real trouble because Martindale knows this league and he's canny and all the rest of it. So he's really transformed his coaching reputation, you know, in the last 5 years or so.
You know him well enough.
Yeah.
He's got a humility and he knows his limitations. Now, against a conversation I had with him, he's brought in good coaches. Brian Rice was identified not just to help the team, but to help David Martindale. He needed somebody to learn from. And who better than Chipper to do that? The humility. David Martindale's greatest asset is he's a planner. He can see around corner and he projects ahead. He's a projection guy. And listen, tactically, he knows the game. But his ability to make contacts and recruit and project and bring in people that can do specific jobs is really impressive. And that's the ingredients for the success.
Yeah, I wish them every success. There's two things. I apologise to all Ross County fans for that line on the show there from Partridge saying nobody wants to go to Dingwall.
Listen, I love Dingwall.
It's a journalist's nightmare if you live in the Central Belt. And boy does
it come out wrong, didn't it?
And boy does Roy McGregor know exactly the way most of the Central Belt journalists feel. And I'm sure Roy McGregor, to his credit, who's a great man, will try and get them back up at the first time of asking. The downside to it, I might as well leather them for it, it's the addition of a third plastic pitch, which does my head in.
Yeah, listen, I mean, Livingston are not a club that's loved by the rest of the league, is it? You know, I mean, the pitch isn't the pitch isn't great at all, and this fan base is small. You know, so for a lot of the games, the attendances are small, and then when the old firm are there, they just completely take over the place, and it can be a bit dispiriting, but listen, but it's not, you mentioned meritocracy earlier on. That's exactly what it is. You're there on merit.
Yeah.
You know, and Livingston have been a Premier League club for a lot of years on merit because clubs have not been able to put them down. And I know this isn't a popular opinion, and to be honest, it's not really valid when there's 3 plastic pitches in the league next season. I don't mind a plastic pitch in the top flight. I think it mixes it up a bit. And Rangers and Celtic particularly can go there and be surprised and upset, whereas maybe normally they would go to a smaller club like that and just, it's routine. I don't mind that element of surprise, but I must admit, what's that, a quarter of the league next season is going to be on artificial pitches? I'm not keen on that.
Don't you think, well, sorry, but this is a conversation we won't be having next summer.
Yeah.
And Kilmarnock's going to have a grass pitch. You're also talking about investment and getting the 2 capital clubs, who at last surely can go and mix it up a bit. Aberdeen now have got a trophy behind them which could change the winning culture or the losing culture. Plastic pitches are going to be an obsolete argument soon.
Listen, I'm not arguing it, and I know exactly why clubs do it, and it makes perfect sense, and they do a lot of good because they can get a lot of kids playing, especially, and that's attractive. And it's not to be dismissed. But 3 is a lot.
Yeah, 3 is a lot. And by the way, I don't buy that argument about, we know why they do it. They shouldn't be allowed to do it because they're gaining a financial advantage that other clubs don't have in the first place. Don't move the goalpost just because they want to earn money from it when they're not playing on it. The rules are, grass pitches, top flight. Let's not make ourselves a laughing stock. Livingston have got an AstroTurf pitch next to their AstroTurf pitch. Do you know what I mean? So, give me peace on the whole thing. It's a nonsense.
Says that Derek McInnes would be gutted the fact that the result went against them for Europe. But I know that Neil Doncaster and his association were gutted that Livingston went up. That's a fact.
Yeah, okay. We'll ask him. Just before we go, a couple of things, quick things. Scott McTominay, Billy Gilmour, absolutely fantastic. I have already, and I might as well tell you, Michael, since we're going strip crazy, I absolutely, love football tops. I've already ordered a Scott McTominay Napoli top so we can give it away as a competition prize because he's so red hot. It's fantastic.
When you sign it?
Well, whenever we see him, we'll try our best. Thanks for putting me under that kind of pressure. But it's been magnificent, hasn't it? Just to see.
Oh, fantastic. And isn't it remarkable when you think so many factors here? Scott McTominay was released by Manchester United, and then you go and see what he's capable of, the campaign he's had, the fact he was used as a part of a back three for Scotland. When you go now, you couldn't possibly imagine him. He would feel so wasted in that position. But I think McTominay, Gilmour, you want to see them come in now to Scotland and have a really pivotal role to play in the middle of the park. I think both of them assured of a very particular place now in the history of Italian football. It's remarkable.
Another thing about it, Michael, I don't know if you'd see this, I'd love to have had a camera in the Grant household when Aberdeen were winning with the penalties, because on TikTok and all the social media, they have so many cameras where people are filming their own families watching the game, and you see the Italians so expressive when there's a chance missed, and then McTominay scores and the whole place goes ballistic.
I mean, for all the celebration scenes and parades that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I mean, Naples is a different level.
Yes.
I mean, it really is. It's insane, it's magical. I was sent out there in September to cover McTominay and Gilmour's home debut, and McTominay was on the bench. It was a cup tie, and he came on in the second half and he scored within a minute. Right, they won 5-0 with Palermo. He scored within a minute, and the fans are up, McTominay, and I mean, he's never looked back. I mean, this has gone on up. It's just upped and increased in terms of the hero adulation that he's getting, and to bring it into a strip. So that was, Napoli were helpful to me, and the press guy was great and all that stuff. But then it's like you do a piece and then that's it. You come home and that's it. 2 or 3 months later, it's Christmas time, and I get a box in the post at the office, and it's a Napoli. It's obviously sent from Naples.
You never
don't. So I open it.
It's going to come out. The show was going well.
I open it. Gordon Fax said that. I open it and it's a Napoli match strip. Right?
Wow.
A Napoli match strip, and my boy knows more about this than I do, but he said it is one that was actually given to the player. And bizarrely on the back it was Lukaku. I don't know why it wasn't McTominay, but anyway, it was a lovely gift from
it's a brilliant touch, and with that in mind, I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I know McTominay has taken. I'm trying to move on as quick as I can.
Yes.
I know McTominay has taken all the plaudits for some of the contribution, and his goals have been magnificent. He's been absolutely superb. But Billy Gilmour is holding his own in the midfield. Antonio Conte trusts him implicitly, which is fantastic. So it's great to see. I absolutely loved it, and we'll give it away as a competition at some point. Last point, and then we're going to finish the programme, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it this season. The Journos has been great, and I've loved having Gordon and yourself and Ali contribute, and Hugh and Andrew Smith and Graham McGarry, Stephen McGowan.
Not so much Stephen McGowan.
Moira Gordon. Who else have we had on the Journos that's been up? Barry Anderson, David McCarthy. Yeah, there's been absolutely so many top quality journalists offering their thoughts on it, and I want to thank them all. You might be aware of this, Michael, probably not you. Definitely not you, because obviously there's very little time in your life, Alison, because you're ducking and diving everywhere. But The West Wing, certainly Cheers, possibly Breaking Bad, as you know. Season 3 is always stronger and better.
The Wire.
The Wire.
Yes. Is a good one.
And I wonder if Ange will get Season 3 after the spectacular Europa League win.
It's really interesting, isn't it? There's still a doubt over whether Daniel Levy will stick with them or not. I mean, I don't know. Levy's headstrong, and he can ride out criticism, and he doesn't seem to bother too much whether the fans love him or not. You're talking about Thelin. I mean, the transformation in Postecoglou's season and life on that night in Bilbao was incredible.
What a line to deliver, by the way. Europa League. I always win things in my second season, and now he said season 3's better. He's great for a back page headline, isn't he?
Jimmy Thelin doesn't look beleaguered. I think Ange looks beleaguered as a domestic Tottenham boss and has looked that way for months and speaks that way.
Is he going to be there?
I don't think so.
Their league
I
campaign's
don't know.
been terrible.
The league campaign's been honking.
Terrible.
Worst for 43 years or something like that. I can't remember the stat, but abysmal. You could have written that defeat on Sunday largely because half of them, I think, were probably drunk.
How going to be there?
How telling was it?
I think he might be.
How
I think he
telling was it?
might
There was no statement leading up to the biggest game of the season for him to back him and or give an assurance.
I think he's buying himself time to make the decision. I think he might get the start of the season, but I think he'll be under pressure immediately. If it doesn't go well immediately, I think he could be one of the first casualties of the campaign. I think he might get the start, just because I felt as though there was a shift within the perception of the Spurs support after it, and he still looks as though he does have the dressing room, I think.
Okay, listen, it's been great. So many topics we've discussed, and some you've agreed with, some you've disagreed with. Some people have suffered the abuse and got absolutely hammered on this show for their opinion over the piece, but that's the nature of it. At least you'll get an opinion on the programme. The great news is the Journos will continue, and we will be bigger and stronger in the new season again, with hopefully Michael returning. Looking forward to European football for Aberdeen, and of course casting his eye over all of the football and offering us his opinion as well. With that in mind, over the summer on the 14th of June, talking about enjoying managers who know their stuff, Gordon Strachan and Martin O'Neill will be together with us. And if you want to, you can click on the link below and join us for an evening in their company. They'll be sharing some of their stories as players, managers, and when you think of their rich and colourful career, it's going to be no shortage of fun on the night. Hopefully you can join us at the Alona for that. I'll be there trying to keep the peace with Gordon and Martin. And let's not forget also, all the stuff that you've been watching this season, absolutely free, will remain so, but we have launched PLZ Premium, a chance to get additional content on PLZ Soccer, and hopefully if you subscribe to that, you'll enjoy some of the extra benefits that we're offering as well. It's all about offering you 7 days a week, non-stop, with our reporters, as much information as we possibly can, and entertainment as well. So a big thank you to Michael for coming on the show. I stepped up to the plate for you, Michael. If you can, on next season's Journos, just come out with a line that says, and if it doesn't happen, I'll wear a certain strip, just to back up your opinion. It shows me a strength in your character. I'm not knowing what strip is going to be. I don't think being an Aberdeen will be a Rangers top.
You tell me which strip it'll be. Then I'll decide if I'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Half and half.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know, a half and half scarf. Who buys
You'll not get them in your retro shop.
No, exactly. From Gordon, again, who managed to get through the programme nearly without causing a major incident. Michael Grant, Alison McConnell, from myself, Peter Martin. Thank you for listening and watching.